Why give in now?
It could be worse than her.
Conservatives are living in a completely different information world.
You are the liberal bubble lady.
But he's claiming he's been really severely harmed.
Stelter, you clown.
You have to listen.
Right-wing conspiracy turned out to be true. Hello, viewers. I'm Dave Rubin, your trusty host. This is the Rubin Report. It's November 13th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Share, subscribe, tap the notification bell, and quick reminder that for a few days now, because we want you to have tequila at your Thanksgiving table, Copal is 20% off. You can go to drinkcopal.com. That's it for promo. Look, it says right there, this episode brought to you by Pfizer. Inject yourself with something weird and see what happens. No, drink some tequila. You'll be happy. The shutdown is over. It's over. Hallelujah. Life goes on. We're going to be okay. I don't know how many people died or starved or were kicked out of their homes or anything else. We tried to crunch the numbers. It's roughly around zero, but we're obviously going to cover that and a whole bunch more. Second half of the show, RubinReport.locals.com, community Q&A, which if you want to get a question in on the fly, you can join us on Locals. We have an iOS app and an Android app, so it's on your phone. Okay, let's do it. Here's Donald Trump signing the bill to reopen the government.
So with all of that, I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you very much.
First off, before we get to the government shutdown ending, I do want to say that whoever's in charge of Donald Trump's hair at the moment is doing a bang-up job. It's a little fluffier and more golden than usual. Also, I think the fake tan thing, it's a little redder than usual as opposed to brown. I think it's quite nice. That's number one, most important. Number two, yes, the government is now reopened. All of the people who said the sky was falling and all of the horrible things that were about to happen, they have all once again been proven wrong. This isn't rocket science, but it did actually take 6 Democrats in the House to jump across the aisle and vote with the Republicans. As you know, 8 Senate Democrats had to jump across, but this was the House, so there were 6 Democrats. I think we've got some names here just for your edification. It was Jared Golden in Maine, Adam Gray in California, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez from Washington, Don Davis, North Carolina, Henry Cuellar in Texas, and Tom Suozzi from my hometown in Long Island, New York. Here is Karoline Leavitt explaining that the Democrats put Americans through pain, which was purely partisan and totally pointless.
It's hard to recap all of this without asking a simple question. Why? Why have the Democrats put the American people through this pain for 43 days in a row? And it feels like Groundhog Day being up here again talking about this Democrat shutdown. And the answer to that question is pure partisan politics. They started this shutdown with a ridiculous demand to force taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits to illegal aliens who broke into our country. The Democrats kept dragging this reckless government shutdown on for weeks longer to boost their turnout in an election, perhaps one may guess. That's because the Democrats are totally captured by their far left-wing base.
Okay, so empirically, it is true the Democrats got nothing out of this. They got no concessions whatsoever. So the government was closed for 43 days, and yes, it did affect, I've been very glib about the whole thing, but obviously it did affect some flight delays, and there were workers that were furloughed who, again, get back pay. So it's not that it was nothing, but it wasn't the all hell is going to break hysteria that they wanted. Now, she also makes the point that perhaps they wanted it to drag on just long enough through that election of a week and a half ago so that it would rile up the base, get the progressive base really, really angry. And if you want some evidence of that, well, we showed you the video yesterday where literally on election night, Scott Jennings on CNN was like, well, we've got through the election. They got what they wanted. I'm going to guess this thing wraps up in a couple days. And of course, that's exactly what happened. But as per the damage that has occurred during the government shutdown, here's a bit more from Karoline.
The damage caused by the Democrats with this reckless government shutdown cannot be forgotten. It is entirely the fault of the Democrat Party. Just look at the vote count. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have missed their paychecks. Tens of billions in wages and benefits were withheld, impacting vulnerable families. Millions of low-income Americans missed their SNAP benefits. Nearly 20,000 flights at airports across the country were delayed due to staffing shortages, causing Americans to miss family events, vacations, and work obligations. And our economy has lost billions and billions of dollars in economic activity over the course of this shutdown, hurting consumer sentiment and crushing the travel and hospitality industries.
All right, so we can all go back and forth on how much damage actually was done. And yes, there were flight delays. And yes, the SNAP benefits were postponed. And yes, there were people that work for the federal government that did not get paid, but again, will now be paid back pay. That's how it always works. But again, the Democrats got nothing out of this, other than I think the progressive base has now gotten a sort of larger call now, a louder voice in trying to destroy all the moderates, some of whom jumped across the aisle to actually open the government, even though it was the progressives who were saying you're starving people. I do think something interesting has also happened, which is that finally, perhaps, there's a little more focus on what these SNAP benefits are. And is it actually true and or sensible that 40 million Americans are on SNAP benefits? 40 million Americans need money from the government so that they can eat. Now, the pure libertarian position on this would be that it shouldn't exist at all, and it should all be done through private charities and churches and temples and synagogues and all of those types of things. There is some argument for that, but if the basic argument is if the more, let's say, mainstream argument is that the government does have some role in doing some things, does it really make sense that 40 million people are on this? So I do think if something good has come out of this, there's more people looking at that going, we are a country of 350 million people. It's probably not that 40 million people are going to starve without SNAP benefits, because again, I don't have any evidence, but please show it to us in the comments, just like I asked for yesterday, if anyone starved. I don't want any kid to starve. Now, again, that's separate from the who should ensure that they don't starve. The government should create the economic conditions so people flourish. And to whatever extent, if you believe the government has any role in any of this, it should have a program. But should that program be for 40 million people, or is it more likely, I guess this is the key thing, is it more likely that the program itself is probably way overfunded, way too many people are on it, we keep people on the government dole for way too long, and then it disincentivizes them from going out there, from working, from earning, et cetera, et cetera. Another piece of this is that it shines some light on the actual inefficiency of our insurance industry, and that is obviously true. Whatever side of the aisle you are on, there's not many people that are like, oh my God, the health insurance situation in this country is great. And one of the reasons that it got significantly worse was because of Obamacare. I'll just give you one anecdotal thing. I have a good buddy of mine who lives in Dallas, Texas, who's a doctor. He's a GI, deals with the stomach and those types of problems, acid reflux, et cetera, et cetera. And he has told me repeatedly, and I've heard this from a million other people, and we all know this, that what happened after Obamacare, because of a giant state expansion of healthcare, was that it became much more about paperwork and trying to balance sheets than focusing on coverage of people who are actually sick. Also, to the backdrop of Maha, we should be thinking about healthcare in a whole new way, that instead of just treating disease, usually when it's too late, we should, I don't know, talk about why we're poisoning our food, why we don't get outside enough, why we inject ourselves with all of these things, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the shutdown, while largely pointless, has shined a light on the SNAP situation. It has also shined a light on the inefficiencies of the health insurance situation, because the Democrats obviously wanted illegals to get health insurance. So here is Donald Trump saying that, well, now we have an opportunity to look at health insurance a whole new way.
Going to go down. It went the exact opposite, with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people.
Okay, so this seems like a real opportunity, if you're Donald Trump, to do something that can really help people and help people quick. Look, we talked over the last couple of days about some of the economic conditions and whether it's all true or just narrative, and he wants to figure out a way to help people get houses, you know, younger people get into the housing market. Maybe this 50-year mortgage thing does something, maybe it doesn't. But that aside for a second, in that there's very few people, as I just said, that love their health insurance, that are like, oh my God, the health services are just so amazing. Like, most people just don't think that. If you were able instead to take tax money and instead of giving it to insurance companies, if you actually could give credits to people, or that you could figure, I think it's kind of funny in the first place because you're taking people's money to do this in the first place. So you might want to just leave people's money in their pocket. But if you're going to tax people, then you might want to actually incentivize them to start having health credits, like figure out a way to keep more money in your pocket. That seems like a winning opportunity for Donald Trump. We'll see what happens with that. The other thing that he's really moving on right now is he really wants to end the Senate filibuster. And this, as I've talked about, this is a tricky one, putting aside who you're for politically. If you remove the filibuster, it will be very easy for whichever side is in power, by whatever razor-thin margin they are in power by, to, in essence, do whatever they want, as opposed to getting 60 votes in the Senate, which is what they have to get right now. If you switch it to just simple majority, like the party in power can do an awful lot. Now, the Republicans happen to be in power now, and I think they would wield that power fairly effectively or justly. The issue is, they will not always be in power, obviously, and if the Democrats, who are now wildly out of control, do take power, they could do an awful lot of damage. So I'm not ambivalent on this. I'm not exactly sure what should happen here, but here's Trump making the argument that the Senate must end the filibuster.
We come up to midterms and other things. Don't forget what they've done to our country. I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again. And don't forget, we have another date coming up in the not too distant future. We can never let this happen again. And we should be able to pass great, really great legislation. So I say terminate the filibuster because, by the way, the Democrats will do it immediately if they ever assumed office, which hopefully they won't.
All right, so the last part, I think that's true. I think it is fairly obvious at this point that this new radical Democrat Party, in that they don't even like the country in the first place, right? They don't like the founding of the country. They don't like our foundational principles and all those things. Why, if they had power, would they not wield it in whatever way they could to get power and to attain that power and to keep that power? There's every reason to think that they would. Now, is that, I'm just talking about it philosophically for a second, is that the right reason for the Republicans to use this power while they have it? I leave that to you. Like, I'm actually not sure what the answer is. I would say in a normal time, and I know why this is a slippery slope argument, but in a normal time, you don't do it. You don't take power. This is the Lord of the Rings thing, right? You don't use the ring because then somebody else is going to, something like that. You don't. But at this moment, we have a little bit of a window where the Republicans could lose the House by next November, right? Midterm election, we know what happens to the incumbent president's party. And if these Democrats take power, will they pack the court? There's every reason to think they will. Will they end the filibuster? There's every reason to think they will. Will they make D.C. a state, which then gives them 2 more Democrat senators? Every reason to think they will. Could they do the same thing with Puerto Rico? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't know, I guess the argument would be extraordinary times create extraordinary measures, but you got to be careful. Interesting, real quick from Polymarket, they put up a poll asking, will the GOP use the nuclear option to break? Will the GOP use the nuclear option to break filibuster by? So 3% of the people that responded said they will do it by December. That jumps to 18% by March. So it seems to me the closer we get to the midterms, the more incentive Donald Trump will have to do that. Let's put the filibuster thing aside for a second. Here was a program with several people I know. This was Chris Cuomo's show. He had Bill O'Reilly and Stephen A. on. And Stephen A. was arguing, in essence, that the shutdown sort of worked for the Dem. And Bill O'Reilly, who I look forward to my crotchety older man phase, I really do, he was just not having it.
The fact is, there have been plenty of times where there are things that have hurt the American people. But from a political perspective, if you see it as something that strategically could position somebody to be in a better position than they were before employing that strategy, you'd at least acknowledge, hey, they tried, it didn't work, but that's how it goes because it's the world of politics. I've seen you say that on many occasions.
I would say,
yes, you have.
As an American patriot, as you both are, I believe that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't say that. I would say if your strategy is to win a political battle, but you're hurting millions of Americans in the process,
right,
get a new strategy.
Okay.
I was yelling a lot, but okay. I love you, Stephen A. But Bill is right. You can't, their strategy was shut down the government. Shut down the government. We want health care for illegals. We hate Donald Trump. We want to do everything we can to damage him. Oh, and there's this election coming up in New York and a couple other places, and it will probably rile up our base. So shut down the government. People are going to starve, but we've got to shut down the government. Then the government opens up, and they're the people pissed about it. I get it. The base of the Democrats is not a particularly bright group of people, so they probably will not make them pay for that. But in terms of real politic, Bill, of course, Bill is right. You claim that all of these people are going to starve and die and the pain points are going to be so high, and you are the ones that did it. And the proof is in the pudding, because it was 8 Senate Democrats and 6 House Democrats that had to jump across the aisle, and then government opened and everything's the same. AOC, who is coming for Chuck Schumer, she wants his head on a plate or on a pike or however they're doing beheadings these days, whatever they do with the head after, that's where she wants Schumer's head. But here she is asked about Schumer, and she slightly walks it back right now, which is a little bit interesting.
Should Chuck Schumer stay as minority leader?
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. You had 8 Senate Democrats who coordinated their own votes on this, as well as you have 2 retiring members. Many of them are also up in several cycles from now, with the hope that people are going to forget this moment. And I think what's important is that we understand that this is not just a leader is reflected as a reflection of the party. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle.
Okay, so there's a couple interesting things here. Remember, Chuck Schumer was not one of the 8 senators who voted to open the government because he wanted cover, which again is exactly what Scott Jennings predicted. So even though he wanted cover, so he could say, well, I didn't do it, he's obviously getting no grace out of her. Also, it's interesting, she says 8 Senate Democrats coordinated their own votes. Are you telling me that Democrats, you're a Democrat, AOC, you mean that some people just disagree with you and do different things? That seems like it's good. It's healthy to have some infighting in a party. It's healthy to have a battle of ideas. But she then goes on to say, we're going to primary their asses. So this is why the filibuster option, I'm sympathetic to Donald Trump's position. The progressives are here to rot out whatever remains of the Democrat Party, take power and never give it up. Socialists don't give up power willingly. But the craziest part of all of this is that the government is now opened and the 40 million people that they told you were going to starve will not be starving anymore. Here's AOC a week and this is 10 days ago, I think, telling you people are going to starve.
Federal workers that have been laid off. We have federal workers that are not taking paychecks. We have SNAP recipients that this administration has essentially indicated, and this president has indicated, that he is willing to starve them in order to coerce them into supporting him. And this is a very grave and dangerous moment. So you think?
No, bitch, it was you. Like, wow, what else do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? It was you. You're the one that right now is pissed that those people aren't starving because you're now trying to primary the 8 people in the Senate and the 6 in the House on your side who should fed those fuckers. Here's Chris Cuomo actually making a good point that what this really is about is that the Democrat Party that you think you know, I know your aunt is a nice Democrat, but the party, it's over, it's over, it's over.
I'm not impressed by the history of this being the longest government shutdown. It's a regrettable history. I think this is an historic moment for another reason. I think the Democratic Party, as we know it, is about to end. I think that this is the birth of the new left. I think the reason that you see so many high-profile Democrats, especially in the House, accusing the Democratic senators for ending the shutdown of basically being traitors. Did you hear AOC? She was literally accusing them of like a conspiracy. And she said, in exchange for nothing. It's really interesting to me. It makes so little sense on the merits that I have to believe it's a ploy.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. You're right, Cuomo. You're absolutely right. I mean, I've been saying this for years. This, of course, is what was going to happen to the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is basically a whale at this point, and you're looking at it on the outside going, that's a nice looking whale over there. Look at that whale. I like whales. But inside the whale, it has been rotted out. It has the carcass on the inside is being disintegrated and ingested by the evil parasites inside that are the progressives. So the party, and again, I know we're all going to sit down at Thanksgiving, and everybody, well, there will be some lucky people that will sit at a table with no Democrats, but most of us will sit and there's going to be some family member, most likely a middle-aged woman who's still a Democrat, and she's not insane, right? She's not like a hardcore Karen. But she's just a nice lady who doesn't really know much, and she likes diversity, and she likes when rapists come over the border and bring drugs. But she's a nice lady, and she makes a souffle, and she comes over, and, you know, she has her Pinot Grigio. And you don't hate her, but she's not that bright. But it's really because she thinks that the whale is still the whale, but the whale is a rotting carcass. John Fetterman, a man who had brain damage not too long ago, who now is the only functional member of the Democrat Party. Here he is talking to Cuomo, and he still thinks that the future of the party is not socialism.
I promise you, America's future and my party's future is not socialism or kinds of outlandish far left kinds of ideas. And it's been a year ago, you know, after we lost the election, a lot of those parts and part of those ideas pushed our party over the cliff. And that's why we're in this situation right now. That's why we're firmly in the minority. And that's why we've lost control of the White House. So some people, you know, if you think that's a solution, that's fine. But it's going to be a competition of ideas. And we know that's not going to prevail. You know, what's going to prevail is common sense.
All right. Again, I wish you an awful lot of luck, but you would have to show me a whole bunch of other people, Fetterman, who are in that party who are arguing for common sense. What you're saying there is we've lost control of the party. We just showed you a video of AOC saying that they're going to primary all of the moderate, all the people who decided to feed the starving people that 10 days ago AOC was very concerned about. Now she wants to primary the hell out of all of them. And, you know, it's interesting. You say that socialism is not our party's future and socialism is not America's future. Well, I think you got one out of the two right. Socialism, if America is going to continue, certainly as the world leader and the greatest country in the world and the dream of all of our ancestors and everything else, well, then socialism isn't the future. There is no evidence that socialism is not the future of the Democrat Party. You will have to, I think, come up against that more and more as time goes by. Here's Fetterman on CNN with Dana Bash. And interestingly, again, he gets a lot of the stuff right. So when I talk about Fetterman, I hope you can see I'm giving him the most gentle nudge, and we are working on getting him on the show. I would love to sit down with him and hash some of this stuff out. But here he is making a point that the extremes are a problem, but he even sees that the far left, which is now his party, is more dangerous than the right.
Write about that in your book. You said, quote, "I've drunk deeply of the venom of both the left and the right. As a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left." That is pretty remarkable to hear you say that as an elected Democrat. Why?
No. It's just been my personal experience on this thing. And the difference is, the right would say really rough things and names. Some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won?
Yeah, and he's really just addressing there just how dysregulated the left has become. If only somebody had been screaming about this for the last 10 years that looked a little bit like me. If only someone had been doing that. What that reminds me of course, is the clip we've shown you many times. I'm not going to play it again right now, but when I sat down with Bill Maher a couple of years ago and I said to him, Bill, where would you be more welcomed? Would it be at an AOC rally or at a Trump rally? And he fully acknowledged at a Trump rally, he'd be absolutely fine. And he'd have all sorts of problems at an AOC rally. And now even think about it for Fetterman. So Fetterman, who's a Democratic senator, if Fetterman showed up to a Trump rally today, let's literally play it out right now. There's a Trump rally today. John Fetterman shows up. What happens? He gets huge applause. Huge applause. And the people there that kind of don't like him, or he's a Democrat or whatever, they'll be like, oh, it's so cool that he's here. Now think about John Fetterman showing up to a Bernie AOC rally. What happens? They are going to boo the hell out of him. They're going to yell at him. There is honestly a chance it would get violent. They view him for his moderate positions as evil as they view the rest of us. And that is a huge problem. I would say that problem is deeply connected to everything that the Democrats have done over the last couple of years. And one of the things that they've done most dangerously is demonize people by their obviously skin color, gender, sexuality, all of these things. Here's Alex Karp, as you know, CEO of Palantir. I play a bunch of these clips of him. Here he is talking about how they've completely abandoned just kind of normal men.
And I'll also say both parties, and again, let me just go to the party where I have more credibility, like the way in which the Democrats just completely neglect males. Like there is nothing wrong, and it's admirable to be a somewhat to high testosterone male. And it's like you have the general vibe in the Democratic Party that it's like there's something wrong. I don't know. There's some way in which I don't find it very appealing as a dude. I don't think most dudes do. It's a huge problem, and you can't address it.
It's funny. I always make the joke about why are they all these Democrats? They all talk like this and they're just all limp-wristed. And that has nothing to do with gay or sexuality, actually. Maybe it has something directly to do with testosterone. But more so it has something to do with just like owning your life. And if you own your life, you will not want to be dependent on the government. So there is a direct correlation between these people that are sort of, I can't really do anything, and can somebody do something for me, and where am I, and oh my God, and then being dependent on government. And that's why the Democrats want everybody broken. That's why every 2 weeks you see another article about how working out and going to the gym is really a product of the far right. Yes, because when people are like, oh, I'm going to lose a little weight and start working out, that means I'm definitely going to be some sort of race realist. No, but they don't want you dependent on yourself. They don't want you to feel good. If you feel good, you won't be dependent on them. They don't want you to grow your own food. Then you won't be dependent on their government-run grocery stores. We can do this all day long. I want to talk to you about gold, which is a way to have a little independence yourself. Guys, gold has officially gone mainstream. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold, but how do you actually take advantage of it and invest in a simple way? Well, that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Their specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA or want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and US-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Go to DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That is DaveRubinGold.com. All right, well, speaking of gold and a guy who knows a little bit about finances, here is Scott Bessent, and he is addressing what have I said repeatedly since the results of the election, whether any of the stuff that people are feeling around the economy, whether it is Trump's fault or not, there seems to be a new narrative developing that the economy better get better quickly or people are going to make Trump pay the price. So Trump seems to be on it. Here is Scott Bessent talking about several announcements that the government has coming in terms of how they can make things more affordable for people like you.
Okay, Brian, you're going to see some substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. Coffee being one of them, bananas, other fruits, things like that. So that will bring the prices down very quickly. And what we are going to do is, by bringing back high-paying manufacturing jobs, President Trump is going to do what he did in the first term, and that is for hourly workers and working Americans to have real wage increases. So, Brian, imagine two lines. There is the inflation line. We've got that under control. It's leveled out. That is going to start turning down. Real wages are going to increase. Right. And I would expect in the first quarter, second quarter of next year, those two lines are going to cross, and the American people are going to start feeling better.
Okay, so first off, on the meta version of that, I mean, does that strike you as someone who is hired because they so happen to be gay? It's not even worth mentioning anymore. Or were they hired because they seem competent and know what they're talking about? It's obviously the latter. So that's just one sort of shot to identity politics there. I don't even want to bother mentioning that again. On the other point, doing a few things that will make things cheaper, particularly things that we don't necessarily grow here. So we don't grow much coffee in the United States. We do grow some bananas. As a matter of fact, I have about 6 banana trees in the backyard. I just sent Phoenix out to see if he can pull a banana off a tree out of the bunch, but it's not banana season right now. So I think if anything, we're going to get maybe a nub of a banana, but it would just illustrate, are there bananas? There are no bananas growing right now, but I assure you I have banana trees and you can grow bananas here in the United States. The point, joking aside, is that they are trying to do some things. And it seems to me that if they can get some of those kitchen table items to continue to go down, and they have, again, eggs and the price of a pound of beef, those are the big two that I always look at, or milk, they have come down a bit, and gas absolutely has. But if you can get the kitchen table stuff to come down, that will calm a lot of this. And then you still have to work on the housing situation and everything else. We need to build more houses, like that's majorly important. The 50-year mortgage thing, I think you can argue it either way. Okay, let's put all that aside for just a second. The other thing that I think Trump has excelled at is not only protecting the borders, but also when bad guys are in boats and they are coming here with drugs, we are blowing up their boats. We don't sit around in a committee meeting going, oh my God, but do we have enough paperwork to make sure that the guys with the fentanyl who are coming over? No, we're just blowing up the boats. It's good. It's an obvious win. But of course, not everybody's for it. And now listen to this from The Guardian. Britain has suspended the sharing of intelligence with the U.S. on suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean amid concerns information supplied may be used to engage in lethal military strikes by American forces. Do you realize how profoundly insane that is? Our supposed ally of Britain is upset that we might blow up boats that are bringing narcotics. These are narco-terrorists bringing narcotics that are killing American citizens. We're blowing up the boats, and they're not going to share intelligence with us about it. It's profoundly absurd. Here, that profound absurdity is explained by Secretary of State and, dare I say, possible future presidential candidate Marco Rubio.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. What they certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organized criminal narco-terrorists in our hemisphere, and the president is responding in the defense of our country. I do find it interesting that all these countries want us to send, and supply, for example, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to defend Europe. But when the United States positions aircraft carriers in our hemisphere where we live, somehow that's a problem. So I would say that the United States is, and this president has made very clear, his job is to protect the United States from threats against the United States, and that is what he's doing in this operation.
A lot of all-stars in this administration, but I just put him at the top of that thing. He was his whole career, tried to be president once or twice before, but his whole career, I would say his whole life story, the father who came here from Cuba, washed dishes here in Miami, and then his son becomes a freaking senator, and he's just so ready for this position. He knows how to just calmly lay out all of these things. Also, it should be noted that international law is not really a thing. Donald Trump and the United States is not beholden to international law. Donald Trump is beholden to the Constitution of the United States, and he is defending our country as he sees fit, which is exactly what Marco's point is. You guys want our missiles because you want to defend yourself from Russia or whoever else. Well, we would prefer that fentanyl not be brought in on the Love Boat. So, sorry, suckers. Here's another guy who I think has been quite excellent in all of this. This is Kash Patel talking about how we are going to work. Well, we've already not only going to, we are currently working with China to stop them from sending us fentanyl, which would be very nice.
While at Ministry of Public Security headquarters, I met with my counterpart at MPS, where the Chinese government agreed on a plan to stop fentanyl precursors. What does that mean? The People's Republic of China has fully designated and listed all 13 precursors utilized to make fentanyl. Furthermore, they have agreed to control 7 chemical subsidiaries that are also utilized to produce this lethal drug. Effective immediately, essentially, President Trump has shut off the pipeline that creates fentanyl that kills tens of thousands of Americans. These substances are now banned, and they will no longer be utilized by the Mexican drug trafficking organizations or any other DTOs around the world to make this drug. This historic achievement has saved tens of thousands of lives.
I mean, look, not only is this just like obvious and good, so we're blowing up the boats that are coming in the Caribbean that are bringing drugs, then we're working with China. It's kind of crazy that China has knowingly been doing this, and we've kind of known that they've been doing it, and so much of this stuff has been coming through our southern border. But if they are actually going to stop producing some of this stuff and getting it to our shores, that is all good. And don't worry, when you go to your local Chinese restaurant, you're still going to be able to get number 4 fried rice, Diet Coke. It's not going to be a problem. It has nothing to do with number 4. Double check me on that. Here is Scott Jennings over on CNN explaining that we have been under attack by these cartels and that Trump stopping them, it's just a win unless you're a moron.
Is he trying to provoke an armed attack?
I think he would argue we're already under attack. You've got Venezuela that does move drugs into our country, not fentanyl, I agree with you, it's mostly cocaine, but they are part of a narco-terrorist system in our hemisphere that floods our country with drugs, and other countries that are our allies. They flood them with drugs. I agree with Jim. Efforts in the past seem to have not curtailed this. And so, look, he had promised a more muscular response to the international drug trade, particularly in our hemisphere. Now we're getting it. I mean, I guess you could debate the legality of it. I'll tell you the politics of it. It's about a 70-30 issue. The American people have been wanting the government to do something more about the narco-terrorism in our hemisphere, and they're doing it. And so I guess we'll see what the lawyers have to say, but I know what the American people think, and it's like, finally, somebody is taking these narco-terrorists seriously.
I know that what Scott Jennings says is important and everything, but I kind of, the whole time I was like, are you going to just turn to this guy and be like, sir, I'm sorry, I can't keep doing this. You look like a thumb. This whole thing is just very weird. Yes, it's a 70-30 win. It's a win, it's a win, it's a win, right? Like, if you are upset that Donald Trump is not abiding by international law, which doesn't even exist, in reality, right? Like you are as an American citizen are not bound by international law. That's why what Mamdani keeps saying, I'm going to arrest Netanyahu because of international law. Like that in and of itself should be disqualifying as an elected official in the United States of America. But putting international law aside, if you're upset that the guys who are bringing the fentanyl over in the boats are getting blown up, you're just a moron. which is largely what the Democrats have become. Here is J.D. Vance talking to RFK, and they're talking about how the Overton window has now really, really shifted on what it is that we can talk about, which is good.
You know, one of the criticisms that Bobby will always get, and I always think it's such bullshit, excuse my language, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. It's probably covering, I apologize to everybody who's watching live on Fox News. Hopefully they were able to bleep that out. But anyway, is sometimes there's this attack where people say, well, you know, this or that conclusion is not supported by the science, or this or that conclusion is a conspiracy theory. And science, as practiced in its best form, is that if you disagree with it, then you ought to criticize it, and you ought to argue it against it, but you can't shut down the debate. It doesn't bother me that they disagreed with something that I believed, or disagreed with something you believed, or any of you. It's that they tried to silence the people who were saying things that were outside the Overton window.
Right. So now the Overton window has been widened, right? People like Bobby Kennedy are now in the government. People like Jay Bhattacharya, people like J.D. Vance, right? We are now allowed to question some things. You know, it's why I always say it's so important to never forget all of the COVID stuff, and why I do throw back to those videos of Rachel Maddow and everything else, because otherwise it just will happen again, all of it. And it won't necessarily happen because of a pandemic, right? It will happen. There will be some other thing. There will be some other thing, and this will be the thing that you can't touch, that you can't talk about, that we're going to boot your YouTube channel, or we're going to demonetize you on this, or we're going to make sure you can't be on social media or post that or the whatever it might be. And we finally are pushing past that. And JD even makes the point, like, he's like, I'm not necessarily right about everything. Bobby often makes the point, I'm not necessarily right about everything. But at least we have people who are actually using the scientific method rather than slamming you over the head with a scientific hammer. Right? That really is the point. Another one of the great people that this administration brought in is FDA Director Marty Makary. Here he is pressing Sanjay Gupta. Now, you know Sanjay, he is CNN's chief medical guy. And he starts asking him about boosters. Listen to Sanjay's answer on this.
I'm 55. I'm a healthy guy. I got my COVID shots. Should I get a booster or no?
What number was that then for you? 7?
Nah, I don't. You know, our hospital was mandating it, so I can't keep track of the numbers. But I think it was 3 or 4 for sure.
I mean, look,
would you get it?
No, I did not get the COVID booster shot.
Because you're concerned about safety, or why?
I don't need it. I don't feel like I need it.
Did you get a flu shot?
I do generally get the flu shot, but the flu efficacy, as you know, ranges from single digits some years to 40-some% at best.
But this idea that if you're healthy, you don't need it. I mean, most people are healthy that get vaccines, right? I mean, it's to prevent you from getting sick.
But the problem is it really does not prevent you from getting sick. If you're healthy, what's preventing you is the fact that you've got cellular immunity and you're healthy and you can withstand a common cold.
If you've had it in the past, you're saying, and you have natural immunity. And that's probably most people now, which is, I think, the point that you've made.
Thank God we have people like Marty Makary now and Jay Bhattacharya heading up NIH. First off, that Sanjay, and I think he pretended. He's pretending not to know. Can you imagine you're the chief medical correspondent, I think that's his title over at CNN, and you're asked on your show how many boosters you got? I think 3 or 4. He can't remember. You can't remember, Sanjay. Is memory loss a side effect of getting boosters? You can't remember. That seems crazy. Like, if you can't remember the amount of boosters you got, I'm pretty sure you're not qualified to have your job in the first place. But then he also says, I can't remember. It was mandated by the hospital. Yeah, it was mandated by the hospital because of people like you. People like you. I got zero COVID shots, 0 boosters. Why did I get it right and you didn't? Is it because maybe, Sanjay, you're an actor?
The drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
Well, Dr. Gupta, there continue to be evaluations of several drugs. Ribavirin is among them. But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your...
Guys, ribavirin is not a drug. That is Morpheus from the Matrix, and that was the movie Contagion, which is a spectacular movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it, with Gwyneth Paltrow and who else is in it? Matt Damon, and fantastic cast, a great soundtrack, great movie about an outbreak. But of course, in the movie, they need you to think that people like Sanjay Gupta are real. So for some reason, everyone else is allowed. You want to play somebody? You can play the head of the CDC? Fine. You can be an actor, but you have to play a TV doctor. It has to be the real one. It's like when Jake Tapper shows up in all of these movies. Like, why can't someone pretend to be someone like Jake Tapper? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Soviet dissident. I often read this quote. I think it is quite illustrative, I should say, of where we are at right now. We know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know that we know they are lying. We know that they know we know they are lying. And they still continue to lie. And that is what we are trying to slog through, whether it's the COVID stuff, whether it's Democrats who are now upset that people are going to eat after telling you that they were going to starve, and the laundry list of things that we should abide by international law, virtually everything we've done on the show. I want to show you another clip. This is a bit of a non sequitur here, but I want to show you this clip because it was going super viral over the last couple of days. Ben Shapiro went on the Trigonometry podcast, and he started talking about how, relative to house prices and the general state of chaos in our blue cities and everything else, that it is part and parcel of the American dream to pick up and go when your values are not in line with the place and when you cannot afford to live there anymore. He got major pushback on this, but I want you to take a look.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
Okay, so a lot of people were pissed at Ben about that. Now, it's a part of a much broader conversation where he talks about all of the problems of New York City and how they've created terrible economic conditions and all of that stuff. But a lot of people were pissed at him because it sort of sounds cold, right? Nobody wants to have to pick up and go. Nobody wants to do it, right? Like or if you do it, you want to do it because it's purely voluntary. Like, oh, I've always wanted to live, it's sunnier over there, I'd like to live there, or whatever it might be, right? So it sounds a little bit cold, like if the conditions aren't right where you live, you should go. I will grant you that it does sound cold. Now let's think about it a little deeper for a second. Think about yourself, think about your family, your ancestors, and everything else. The entire human condition, the entire story of humans is that they move for better opportunity. That's literally why I am here in Florida. This guy, this guy, this guy, right? And if there was better opportunity elsewhere, they might leave. Now, technically, I have them all under 50-year contracts and they're never allowed to leave, but there would be a legal fight before they were able to go. That's actually true. And in an American situation, in an American context, we have states' rights. So the states are wildly different and you should be allowed to move. The more that the federal government, the more that we have centralized control over the whole damn thing, well then, if it's not that good here in Florida, it won't be that good in Georgia or Texas or New Mexico or Cali because the federal government will control everything. So we have, in essence, greased the wheels so that you have a chance to move. And it actually is true. So which would you rather have? Would you rather have a system that has some variance in it? And then, look, it would be here, I'll do it this way because I can give you a very specific example of this. We're here in Miami right now. This is probably the hottest city in the entire country and in the safest, most functional state, right? I don't have to belabor the point on that, you get that. I am very sympathetic to the OG Floridians who did it right, that have lived here for a long time, who then as all these new people come in, right, things start to get more expensive. Now, sometimes over time, then it'll start dropping because there'll be more businesses here and everything else. But all these new people came in, the prices of houses went up. So then property taxes started going up. So like my neighbor next door who's been here for 50 years or so, whose house now is worth much more just because of the land, right, is now paying more in property taxes. I'm sympathetic to that sort of thing, and I wouldn't want that person to have to leave. So now let me read you a tweet, and then I will even offer you a solution to the problem I just laid out there. I put this up yesterday. America really is going in two different directions. Blue states with endless taxes, giant government programs, and total dependency. Florida and some other red states with low taxes, quality services, and living within our means. Now, to illustrate that, here is Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday on why we should eliminate property taxes.
From the property tax situation. It's very important given how that's pinched so many homeowners, particularly our senior citizens who have their homes paid off and they bought it 30 years ago for a certain amount. Now they're being told it's worth so much more and they have to pony up more and more money. It's almost like they have to pay rent to the government just to be able to enjoy their property. And that's wrong. And we need to do something about it.
It is wrong. And if you want to create economic conditions for people to be able to flourish and to not punish good people who did it right, and I'm quite literally talking about my neighbors next door, who I think have lived here for decades, and over the time that they've lived here, because Florida became such a beacon of freedom, I don't know if they've paid off their house or not, obviously it's none of my business, but the value of the land has increased and increased and increased. And assuming they've paid off their land, then think about it, then they have to pay thousands of dollars every month, in essence, to rent the land. You know, they call it a property tax, but in essence, it's to rent the land to keep your property on it. And why should we do that? So we just have to start thinking about things a little bit differently. And if we lower taxes, if we lower regulation, if we give more chance for you, exactly what Donald Trump said as it relates to healthcare earlier, if we give more chances for you to invest in yourself and your community, that is the way you make things flourish. I don't know that we've ever had a more sort of fitting ad right here, but Tax Network USA. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Tax Network USA is A+ rated and has saved clients over $1 billion. Whether you owe a few thousand or a few million, they can help. In just one phone call, you can start the process of stopping those threatening demand letters, ending the aggressive collections, and resolving your tax problems once and for all. But you have to act now while you still have options. For a free consultation, call Tax Network USA today at 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave. Don't let the IRS be the first to act. All right, guys, we got a couple questions from the Rubin Report Locals community. Here we go. Christine says, are Democratic socialists trying to take over the Democratic Party instead of forming a third party? And if so, what can moderate Democrats do to prevent it? Christine, yes, they are trying to destroy the party. Would it have been nice if they had just, formed a splinter party, just said, hey, we're not into liberalism, which was the sort of driving idea of the Democratic Party for a long time. We are socialists, right? Years ago, remember, they all called themselves Democrat socialists. They really don't say that anymore. And by the way, watch my videos from 5 years ago. I was saying it. Eventually, they will drop Democratic. And by the way, eventually they'll drop socialists and they'll admit that they're communists. And some of them are already doing that. So it would have been nice if they had just formed a different party. You know, it's sort of like there's a Libertarian Party. It's useless and ineffectual and all of those things, but they don't fully fit in within the Republican Party that tends to be more conservative than libertarian. So it has it sees more of a use for government than a pure Libertarian Party. And the Libertarians have their party. They've done very little with it and they never get good candidates. And I've used to go to a lot of libertarian events and they mostly want to argue about whether driver's licenses should be legal or not. And I'd be like, guys, could we kind of get more serious here? And that's why I don't do a lot of those events anymore. I'm just not that interested. It's also why I never fully considered myself a libertarian. I love libertarian ideas, obviously. I'm always talking about how to limit government, keep more of your money, all those things. The classically liberal position, I always think, is it's sort of a libertarian who lives in the real world. Libertarians, as a general rule, they live in more of an idea world. Yes, we should have open borders and blah, blah. Okay, well, that all is nice, except I live in a real world, right? I'm a realist, I think. I know I'm a realist. And so a classical liberal has some guardrails around the principles of libertarianism. I think that's a nice way to put it. So no, I hate to tell you, they are not forming their own party. And if you are a good liberal or an old school Democrat, congratulations, you're a Republican. It's just how it is. At least you are a Republican under MAGA. If MAGA is to fray, if some of these more far right or whatever you want to call it elements are to split MAGA, then I think an awful lot of liberals, I'm talking about the RFK types, they're going to be Democrats again, which would be a freaking shame beyond imagination. Lacey says, I want to buy a bottle of Copal for my husband. Stylistically, he likes Blancos. Do you think he'll like Copal? He mentioned that the Clooney brand tastes like it has flavor added versus from the barrel and doesn't think it's good. Is that how you feel about it? Yes. So Casamigos, which is the Clooney brand, which I always forget, he sold for $500 million or $1 billion? He sold it for $1 billion. It's shitty ass tequila. It's not good. I will give George Clooney credit. Casamigos, house, friends, boom, great name. Like, you nailed it, man. Great. The tequila is not great. There are additives in it for sure. It's just not great tequila. It's not, I'm sorry. Copal is a reposado. So you said your husband likes Blancos, right? So then Blancos obviously are not aged. That's why they're clear. Reposados are aged 3 months. Añejos are aged at least a year. Then there are extra añejos usually aged 15 months. And then you can get, it's sort of like whiskey. You can get tequilas that are aged. I think I had a 25-year aged añejo actually, and it was too much for me. I don't like that much flavor. I'm actually more similar to your husband. I like a little bit of flavor. And I'm telling you what we've created, if he likes the flavor of the agave, if he likes the flavor of what tequila actually is, so I get it. That's why he likes Blancos. And if you go to, when we went down to the agave fields and we talked to the people at the distilleries and all that, most of the Mexicans there, they like Blanco because it's tequila in its most pure form. I like just a little bit. Reposado, to make a reposado is actually the most complex because aging 3 months, the chances you're going to get the flavor profile right is a little bit tougher. You age things forever, and in that barrel, eventually enough flavor is going to seep through, and you're pretty much not going to screw up an añejo. I like the light, refreshing flavor of a reposado. I think you will dig it. And as we said at the top, right now, because we want you guys to have Copal at the Thanksgiving table, it is 20% off for a limited time. So you got to order it this week to get it before Turkey Day. And there is nothing better than turkey and tequila. Well, I guess gravy's good too, but Brian says, with the current season, what are you most thankful for in 25? I mean, it's David and the kids, obviously. Like that's the easy kind of corny but true answer. Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I had a wonderful interview yesterday morning. We're going to hold it for a little bit. I had Arthur Brooks on, and he just wrote a book about happiness and how to pilfer some happiness out of these crazy times that we live in and not get caught up in everything. We talked a lot about the digital side of it and the sort of scientific side of it. And we talked about the spiritual side and how to blend all those things. And we did it at 8 a.m. yesterday morning, which I usually don't do interviews that early in the morning. And it was such a nice way to set up the day. But much of what he talked about related to happiness is just being appreciative of things. And I'm very, very aware that I have a great family. I have a great home. I have great colleagues and coworkers. I can still run around when I play ball. Like, my health is good. So I know you probably want me to just say something that's like a little more over the top or something, but it's that. I'm very, 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 very aware of that. Sally says, do you predict that John Fetterman, if ousted by the Dems, which seems likely, will become a Republican? Yeah. He doesn't strike me as somebody that's going to leave that easily. You can see it with him right now. Like, in some sense, he sees the writing on the wall, but he keeps saying the future of my party's not socialist. Now, as I said before, he's right. The future of America isn't, if America is going to continue, but the future of his party is. So will he eventually become Republican? I don't know that he will be a card-carrying member of the Republican Party, but I would say the same thing about Bobby Kennedy. I don't know that Bobby Kennedy has, ripped up his Democrat card. I think he lives in LA. I don't think he's ripped that up and now says he's a Republican. He happens to work in a Republican administration. You might take somebody like Joe Rogan, pretty much voted Democrat his whole life. Is he a Republican now? I don't know. As I always tell you, I was never a Republican until I moved to Florida, and it's very obvious to me. I also want to be able to vote in primaries here. Some states have open primaries, some have closed. But I'm very proud to be a Florida Republican. What happens with national Republicans post-Trump? We'll see. Dave says, I noticed that you can look up every order you have ever made on Amazon. Went to my first one in January 1997, and it was a Calvin and Hobbes book and the 1997 Scott Adams Calendar notebook. What was yours? Oh, man. Well, first off, 1997, I think that, God, that's way before even the freaking iPhone. So that was when Amazon was just selling books. A lot of people probably don't remember that, but that's what Amazon was started as. I'm trying to think, did I buy any books on Amazon. Probably not, because I lived in New York City at the time, and I used to go to bookstores all the time, actually. It was one of my favorite things to do. You could just sit at Barnes & Noble, and you could just sit, and I had no money when I was a struggling comic, and I used to just sit in the alleys there and just read full books. I would sit there for hours and hours and hours and do that. What was the first thing? I mean, my guess is probably wasn't a book. It was probably a couple years later with the iPhone. Probably bought a video game, maybe like a PS2 game. What year would PS2 be? That's got to be around 2000, something like that. By ballpark, no, PS2 was probably around 2002, maybe something around 2000. Wow, how did I get that right? Yeah, so it was probably like NBA Live or one of those things. Yeah. Let's talk about balance of nature for a minute, and then we'll have more questions on the other side. Getting enough fruits and vegetables every day can be tough. That's why I love Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements. They make it simple to add a wide variety of whole foods to your daily routine, all in just a few capsules. These supplements aren't just convenient, they're made from 100% whole foods with no binders, fillers, or flow agents. Just 16 whole fruits and 15 whole vegetables that are freeze-dried, lab-tested, and packed with natural goodness. You can take them with water, chew them, or even mix the powder into your favorite food or drink. However you use them, it's the easiest way to get more real fruits and veggies into your day. Right now, you can get a free fiber and spice supplement plus 35% off your first order as a new preferred customer at balanceofnature.com. Just use code Rubin. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Rubin. All right, a couple more questions. Joe says, when is it appropriate to put up a Christmas tree? I vote after Thanksgiving. You know, it's funny. We went so hardcore. I've mentioned this a couple times. The kids are so into ghosts right now. We're like a Ghostbuster factory here. I've got an ectoplasma system and a other thing that the Ghostbusters have, and we got all the proton packs and all of that stuff. That started in August when we were off the grid. And we play Ghostbusters constantly in this house. There's something funny about children, like they just want the same song or whatever it is over and over and over. So I have heard the song Ghostbusters. Na-na-na-na-na. Like there's nobody on planet Earth that has heard the song Ghostbusters more than me, except my kids, basically. So we were very early in on Halloween. David's really big on the seasonal stuff and putting the house in order, let's say, to have the seasons be a little bit, so that you come in and we got the early September stuff with Halloween and then roll into, we have a lot of Thanksgiving stuff up right now. So we're going hardcore on Thanksgiving right now. Yeah, I guess I would say after Thanksgiving, you go hardcore on Christmas, but to each his own, as they say. Tony says, it's great to see that Copal is winning awards. Do you have any deals in the works to get Copal into restaurants or bars? Any way we, the locals members, can help? So yes, we are expanding. We have a big meeting tomorrow. We're working on a major distribution situation here in Florida that I think we'll know about by the end to get into a ton of stores. I really want to kind of focus on we're really just selling online right now. We're in one, I literally brought one bottle of Copal to a restaurant that I really like here in Miami called Chop in Coconut Grove. It's a great steak joint that just opened a couple months ago. I introduced myself to the manager. I said, hey, this is my tequila. You want to sit down and try this? He absolutely loved it. They immediately bought it. So Copal is at Chop in Coconut Grove if you're in the Miami area. And we're slowly figuring out what to do. It's doing a really nice business online, and I'm so thrilled. Every day I'm getting emails and I see all the tweets and comments and locals. Like, people really do love it. I have seen it's a really, really good tequila. And even if you like tequila, you will love it, I promise you. And if you don't like tequila, I still think you're gonna like it. Like that really is my position on all this. But yes, we plan to then roll out into some other stores and restaurants and things of that nature. So stay tuned. Well, we just hired a broker, so give me a little bit. It's happening. But for right now, drinkcopal.com. Marty says, do you think Gavin Newsom's terrible track record is why he refuses to say he wants to run for president? This way, the spotlight exposing him will be delayed as well. It's so freaking hard to see what is going on truly in that man's mind and heart. Like the endless ability to lie, to pretend he's had nothing to do with all of the horrible things he's done, to point everything at Trump. Like, will the lies ever catch up with him? I mean, the fact that they did that debate, which I know everyone's forgot about now, but that DeSantis and him did that debate, and DeSantis just mopped the floor with him, just confronting him face to face about all of his lies, literally pulling out. I love when receipts are pulled out of the pocket. Here's the freaking poop map in San Francisco that people put out on an app so that they don't step in shit. Like DeSantis doing that, right? And that's not DeSantis' strong point, like gotcha with somebody. And the fact that he survived that, like he kind of is a cockroach in that sense. Like this guy will survive anything politically. He shouldn't have, a guy that destroyed San Francisco, he should have been the last guy that would then be the governor of California. And yet he is and has been reelected and survived recall and everything else. So I don't know what goes on, like what privately goes on in his mind. Does he think he's honest? Does he think he's good? Does he think this is all a game? I don't know. Mitch says, other than the Golden Girls and cartoons, do you have any favorite TV shows from childhood? Mine were Kung Fu with David Carradine, Lost in Space, and I would throw in Gilligan's Island as well. Well, everybody loved, it was a little before my time, obviously, so I was seeing it in repeats, but everybody loved Gilligan's Island, all that stuff. I really remember I loved Magnum P.I., I loved The Love Boat. I loved a lot of those, I guess those were kind of early 80s. They were actually late 70s into early 80s shows. A lot of them I was a kid, I didn't really understand, but I did see this question before, and I'm gonna pull this up because there was a show that was on Friday night. It was not for kids, but my parents and my brother and I, we'd all hop in my parents' bed and we would watch a show called, it was not Dallas. Falcon Crest, thank you. We would watch a show called Falcon Crest. It was basically a soap opera, dramedy, I guess you could call it. Here's just a little bit of it, and you'll find something quite interesting. There's a little bit of the intro of Falcon Crest. So it's such 80s, whatever. And if I can't really remember it, but I know, maybe it's more about the memory of being in my parents' bed and that we all just watched it. And it was definitely too old for us. And I remember my mom would occasionally cover our eyes if, I don't know, if there was a kissing scene or something like that. But interestingly, I'm sure many of you noted this, that woman that they showed the intro for, that was Jane Wyman, who was Ronald Reagan's first wife. So there's a little bit of trivia for you to almost end the show today, but we do have one more question. And it's a deep one. Tappy says, do you believe in reincarnation or an afterlife? It's interesting. I would say I have a kind of Jungian take on this, sort of if you've watched Groundhog Day. I think it's kind of something like this. I think we are put here on this planet to get it right. And you probably get put back here many, many times. Is that reincarnation in the most strict sense? I'm not so sure I believe in that the most strict sense. But I think you're kind of put here the way Bill Murray was put in Groundhog Day over and over. And this is very Jungian, that you can get it, you get better at it and better at it and better at it, hopefully. And then eventually when you kind of get it right, then you move on. If you haven't seen the movie Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks, there's a little bit of a version of that there. He's kind of on trial in purgatory for his life, and you have to prove something. You have to get over something, so that in that case, in the movie, they call it move on. I think there is something to that. So I would answer it this way. I don't think this thing, I don't think it's just this. I do think that there is something else. Guys, no post-game show today because we're pre-taping tomorrow's show. And then I've got Ashley Rinsberg in studio a little bit later today. He's a really interesting guy. I've had him on the show a couple times. Wrote a fantastic book about the failures of the New York Times. And he's one of these guys that does deep dive research into all the weird parts of the internet, Reddit and Wikipedia. And he's really become an expert in the information war that's on our brains. So obviously that's something I'm super interested in. So we got a busy day. Thanks for watching, guys. More tomorrow. Ciao.